Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Good morning. Good morning for those of you in the U.S. Good afternoon for those of you in the Europes. Day after the 4th of July, Friday, or not Friday, gosh, my Tuesday, the 5th of July. And we're back here, back at it, doing our, sure I got my volume set right, doing our scenery design things here. There we go, a little bit louder. And I've made some progress here. I'm happy to be back. I can confirm, first and foremost, from the top, that Windows 10 is definitely the platform for doing Microsoft Flight Simulator SDK work. I have had 0 crashes since in Microsoft Flight Simulator on Windows 10. Windows 11 was constant crashes. So, and that's like a fresh install of Windows, very vanilla, not a whole lot of extra apps or any sort of mods really installed. It was just pretty much plain Jane in Windows 11, and it was crashing left and right. So, pretty happy with where we are right now. Just waiting for the song to end here. Oh, don't want to yet. It's almost there. Okay. So a lot of progress has been made here in the scenery. Well, what I think is a lot of progress. You might not think it's a lot of progress. It's not going super fast. I think the last time we met, I had the beginnings of this taxiway kind of carved out. This long one here, and the runway stuff was already done, and now we're really grooving here. As we've got, all right, now I can stop it. All right, got this extension here, this extension of Kilo here, and we've got the entire terminal and cargo ramp, and the old Samaritan's Purse ramp here, as well as I just started working on Kilo 2. And we've got Kilo done all the way into the signature ramp. Need to do that ramp still, and we have all of this done up here to Delta 1. Delta to Delta 1. Pretty good progress is being made. And I've noticed a couple of things that are a little different than the last time I did all of this before it all got wiped because of my stupidity. But there was previously, right here actually, this was one of those Microsoft, like, oh, this is a parking lot, and they put a parking lot type of object in there, which is impossible to remove. And the same thing with over here. There were just a bunch of cars that are not like regular airport objects that are easily removable. But I think since the world update, the US world update, I think those are gone. Yeah, like they don't show up at all. Either that or the exclude is actually working on those now. But so yeah, don't see those anymore, which is nice because I don't have to put in something to make them disappear myself, which makes me happy. Let's see what else. Still showing windsocks, so I'll have to do something about that. I think if I do a little exclude rectangle on them, it won't show in the world, not the world editor. World editor is X-Plane. It won't show here in the scenery editor, in the direct editor thing here in the SDK, but it will show on a published like packages community folder project. So that's cool. Let's look at what it looks like real quick without all the scenery editor stuff on. Pretty standard. I think it looks pretty nice. And as you can see, got some things that will have to be addressed in the future are, okay, I want to show you, I take a lot of pride in this. So the squaring on, oh, I didn't talk about, we have to do that at some point. I'll do it on video at some point. We'll talk about how to get the texturing of the cement to match your underlying photos, but you'll notice that when I turn the surface off, that the lines still line up with what's underneath. still have these sort of lines that they're really hard to see on here. Yeah, so they still match up with what you're seeing underneath there. I don't know if you can tell. But anyway, I had to do a whole bunch of moving of everything, and this luckily uses the same pattern. When we get to over here, it uses a different pattern, and I'll have to so I'll show you guys how we match that up. You move the texture around and space it out, make it wider, make it smaller, stretch it, things like that, and rotate it so that it matches what you have underneath. And so what we end up with is this poured cement texture that has these little square lines in them, matching your scenery perfectly, or close to perfectly. And this is the real test spot right here, is these little squares, because they all end on the creases. And it ended up working out really pretty darn well. So I like what we ended up with here, and I think it's definitely a product worth keeping right now. So, and that continues. It's surprising how it continues all the way down to here, and it starts to get kind of messed up in here. That it's not all as even anymore. And there's just nothing I can do about that. It's not really the texture that's the problem. It's just the way they built this ramp. So one thing that's going to have to be addressed in the future is, when I get to the terminal ramp, is what am I going to do with like all these little vehicles and stuff that you can see through the tarmac. I like the fact that you can see some of the blemishes and stuff, some of the coloration. And the discoloration, how it's not all completely even underneath there. I like that. I see some grain, some sort of old painted lines and stuff. I like that, and I want to keep that. So I'm going to keep that sort of opacity to this, but I have to cover up a lot of this stuff too. So what I'm probably going to do is put another apron underneath this one and make it solid and not opaque at all, so that it's just solid color there. And you won't see any of that. There won't be any marks at all. And then I especially have to do that for this aircraft. I can't keep an airplane just sitting there. So we'll get to that later. So David, good morning to you, or good afternoon to you. I'm doing pretty darn well today. Took my son off to school, so he's back at school after our holiday yesterday. Not a vacation, just a day off. And so that was fun. And it's still pretty early here, so I'm trying to get a couple things done here in the sim, and then I got to go mow some lawn. So that'll be fun. All right, so what I want to eventually get to today, we're going to do some taxiway lights. Taxiway lights are considerably easier than the other lights because they're pretty much the default setting for the light row object. One thing I'm going to do before we get onto that is I'm going to just do this little section of taxiway here that really leads into this runway. So we're going to use the split object method here, which is going to be pretty cool. And I don't actually need to place a new object. What I'm going to do is we've got just two nodes. You can only do this in spots where you have just two nodes like this. So my son doesn't. You're asked if we're in summer break yet. My son doesn't actually go to a school that has a summer break. It's hard to explain, but I don't really want to get into it. But yeah, he doesn't get a summer break. He's only 5, and it is pretty much an all year program that he's in right now. Okay, there we go. Let's get in the top down view. I don't like to use the regular dev cam for this stuff. Let's see. Next one should be where we are. There we are. Okay, so I like to also edit these nodes and stuff without the surface drawn so I can see straight through. And for here, I want to just make sure that we're just tucked right on inside the texture. There we go. These green lines are often elevated and such, so as you get closer to them, you can see they move very quickly, and because they're not sitting right on the surface, but the actual texture sits on the surface. So it's kind of a strange way that this all works here. I'll click on this and that. Should help. You would think it would, but it doesn't. Okay. The problem with that, the reason that I have problems with this apron that I used for the runway is that I only used 2 points. There's only 2 points. And because the runway kind of slants a little bit, slants a little, it draws it from this end to this end, and it just draws a straight line. And there's a little bow on the bottom of the runway, so it cups a little bit. So it just goes straight across that. There's no other points. You do it something like this taxiway, this long taxiway, and all of these points will sit right on the surface, so it won't look like it's bowing at all because there's so many stinking points and intermediate points here in the runway. So, but this square that goes, this rectangle that goes around the edge of the runway here, sort of border of the runway, doesn't have any. I didn't put a single one in. So it just stretches the length of the runway, and it's going to have some high points and low points. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway. So I took this taxiway object here, this apron object, and extended it out to here. And you might be asking, hey, wait, those are two different surfaces. How are you gonna do that? So here's the trick. If you haven't seen me do this yet, I'm going to select the object. I'm going to select this node here, and then Control-click here. And now it's green. So these two are selected, and now I can right-click and go to split polygon. And now it creates a new polygon. I cut that polygon into 2 polygons essentially. And so all the nodes that the vertices that you see here are exactly in the same spot. These 4 really. These 2 here are in the same spot. These 2 are here in the same spot. So what that means is I just have two apron objects now. I can draw this one in finally. That one still goes to there just like it did before, and this one is only right here. So the trouble is when I draw it, it still has the same properties as this one. So for that, I need to figure out which properties I want to use. But I think for that color, was I going to use this one? Yeah, those are pretty much the same, aren't they? Sure, why not? So we'll just copy the properties to here, paste the properties, and you got a pretty nice looking color-wise. So now what I'm just gonna, I just go in and I'm gonna lock this one right here so I don't drag any of that around. By accident, can't even select it anymore. That's what you like. Select this one. All right, and we're gonna start drawing the curves. So I don't have to worry about trying to line these edges up at all because those nodes match exactly. All right, I'm going the wrong way around the circle here. Okay, so we add them over here. Now I just get those little handles right away, which is the way I like to do it. Less clicking, goes a little faster. Just got something to grab onto right away. I feel like I'm getting faster at this part because I'm not necessarily being quite as detailed as I was the last time I did all of this, where it has to be perfect and it has to be super high number of vertices. I think I'm using slightly less, being a little less detailed about it, but still getting a nice product, and it's going much faster. Cloud Viper, good morning. Happy Tuesday. All right. Looks nice. And then we'll come over to this one. Wish there was a way to do that same kind of splitting type of thing off of this edge. I need one more in there. Yep. Add points. I wish there was a hotkey for adding points also. So one thing I've noticed that I really miss about here in the Microsoft SDK that was in the X-Plane World Editor is facades and strings. The the fence, boundary fence tool was nice. I hear they're working on one here for Microsoft Flight Simulator also. So that's a work in progress. It's supposed to be out in Sim Update 10, which I thought was supposed to be sometime this month. I don't know if it's still going to be this month or if it's pushed into August, but Sim Update 10 is supposed to have a lot of goodies, and it's going to have some updates to the SDK as well. That'll hopefully help make some things better for us designers. All right, that one's done. Turn that on. And we'll see how it looks in inspector mode. Make sure there's no seams that are working weird. That looks nice. All the edges here along this look good. All right, cool. Another taxiway done. And we'll go into the developer cam and go take a look. Do we have 7 viewers? My goodness. Well, hello to all the viewers. We had 7 viewers anyway. Cloud Viper, where are you from, man? Say it's almost nighttime there. Yeah. We have our international reach. As we make these scenery airport updates, redesigns. Pay no attention to this. This is my little test polygon that I like to use. Really, it's a really cool way to do it, actually. If you haven't seen me do this, this is pretty neat. So I'll turn this off. Oh, I locked that, didn't I? Yeah. So I'll do, like, say I'll have nothing here, and I'll say, well, I want to try to match the colors, but I don't. It's harder to do when you actually have the surface on top of the surface that you're trying to match. So I put it right alongside of it, basically, and then I just go into my coloration thing and just start moving it around, try to get something that looks close, and then I apply it to the actual surface. So that seems to be, you can copy it that way. And actually I did the same trick for lining up the lines on the texture. I think you can see that. Is that coming through? Yeah, you can see the lines here, the cross section, and then so I just make sure that that cross section matches. Next thing you know, all the edges work. Those little seams work pretty well. India. Cloud Viper from India. Good. Yeah, this is, so I don't know how like professionals do this, but this is how I do this. It's kind of the same workflow on every sim, and it's just little quirks about how things work differently. This SDK, the scenery editor here, where you're doing it live in the sim, is much different than any of the other sims I've worked in before. But once you get the hang of it, it ends up being pretty much the same. The only thing that I'll say is different is the performance. After a while, the more edits you make and stuff like that, the sim kind of starts to chug a little bit. You can see I got another one of those test polygons here, and then there's one on the other right there as well. But so because you've got all these sim assets in there, and it kind of starts to degrade the performance. So every once in a while you have to close up and restart on like a 2D just Windows app editor, which a lot of them, which most of the sims use. I'm going to try to eventually terraform this so that there's actually like a sunken in channel that kind of goes down for this little drainage here. But yeah, so taxiway lights. I gotta turn that back on. This taxiway, let's draw that surface. Go. And in inspector mode, you can see kind of where we are. Lots of pavement without any sort of decoration on it. And I'm just gonna save that part for last because I really don't want to do that part. Not because it's hard or anything, but because I just think the default lines look stupid. They're not right. So I'm still awaiting a fix on that. All right, so here's the trick. The trick is we want to put taxiway lights. So the scenery, especially this one, is nice in that it has all these little brown circles, which are cleared out spots where the lights are installed. So it's kind of easy to go along and just place them in there. Say, oh, there's a light, there's a light, there's a light, there's a light, stuff like that. So where it gets tricky is when you get down to stuff like this, where this taxiway has a border, and the taxiway lights go in the border. So what do we do for that? How do we see where the lights are? Well, right here they're on the edge, because there is no border on this side, but right here there is a border, and they're in on the actual taxiway. So just like kind of I was just doing with the matching colors, is you just undraw the surface, and you go through and say, oh, well, there's a light, 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 and I don't know if there's any more than that. Oh, this leads into the cargo ramp there. So anyway, that's how you do it when they're on the actual taxiway. It's harder to see them, but it's still really not that difficult. All the other ones here on the older taxiways that don't have those borders, those shoulders that I call them, they're all pretty easy to see. If you have trouble seeing them on the Bing scenery, here's bordered taxiway part right here, where they will all be on the taxiway on that part of it, and then they go to not being on the taxiway. If you have trouble seeing the actual lights through, you're not sure exactly where they go, or if there is one in a certain spot, a couple of hints. First of all, generally, when you have just a long taxiway, there's going to be matching lights on either side. So if there's a light on one side, like right here, then there's going to be a light right around here somewhere. They're going to match each other. The only time that doesn't hold true is when you go into curves. In curves, they're not all necessarily going to be matching, because they get closer together, there's more of them, and but long stretches especially, they are always usually parallel. Like you can tell that right here they get a little bit off. They're not just staggering, they kind of do their own thing. So that's where it gets tricky, is in curves. But otherwise they all pretty much, like, this is a symmetrical curve in terms of where the lights are placed. There's one here, there's one here, there's one there, there's one there, there's one there. They are all the same pretty much until they lead back to the taxiway, and then they go back to the whatever. Oh, your friend builds a lot, but I think he uses Blender and a mix of others, but great work. And a lot of simmers fly there. Cool. Yeah, very international stream. We got Germany, India, and the US. And everybody else is left. So, okay, so we're going to get into the taxiway lighting. Now, picking a good starting point is important here. So I'm just going to pick this inside edge right here. So one tool that you can use, again, if you're not exactly sure if there's a light placed there or not, is actually Google Maps is usually a good resource to have kind of loaded alongside, because just I would say the resolution of the satellite imagery, at least in the US, for Google Maps tends to exceed that of the Bing Maps, and so and the coloration is a little bit clearer a lot, and you don't get it like these here in the sim especially. It's covered up with all this like vegetation junk that Microsoft puts on it, plus that it's a little dirt layer that it likes to put up above every surface, which I hate, but you know, like, it makes this taxiway look really, really dirty when in fact it's not. It doesn't look like that at all. So it just tends to do that stuff, and so looking at kind of a Google Maps image alongside of it can be helpful. Luckily, when you have the top-down camera on, much like Google Maps in a web browser at least, if you use Google Earth Pro or whatever, you can change the vantage point. But when you're in this view, top-down view, it matches the same orientation as the Google Maps online, because they're both just point north, oriented to true north, I believe. So this angle I'm looking at is exactly the same as what I'm looking at on Google Maps. That's the bottom line. That's what I'm trying to get to. All right. So this is how you lay in some taxiway lights. So what I'm gonna do is we're still in the closing the runway object. Just gonna lock all that up. Terminal ramp we don't need yet. Close that. Taxiways, that's where we are. So taxiway kilo, I have this. All I have is aprons in there right now, so I'm gonna add lights. So we're gonna go objects. We're gonna select the light row. And I'm just going to use the default lighting right now. I'm not going to change the properties or anything of it. But I want to make sure that I have my taxiway that I'm going to use selected so that when I add a row, it puts the light row right inside of the kilo folder, which is what I want it to do. Okay, so it's all in red because it's trying to say, hey, you have something that isn't closed yet. I have a row object selected, and I haven't made any actual... haven't actually made any lights with it yet. So we have to do that. And to do that, just looking at something here. Okay, we're going to start. I'm looking at Google Maps, and the first one is right here. So you'll see spots like this is cleared out where it looks like, oh, maybe there should be a light there, but there's no light there. I know these. I know these for a fact. Okay. It's just dirt. Sure, this is where we want to do it. Yeah. So I'll start for just like before, we're gonna left control, left click. I'm gonna put it right there. So it's kind of odd because these pictures are not very helpful with where the light is exactly. Okay. Again, it's because it's covered up by that dirt layer. Alright, so I'm just going around clicking. Well, that's interesting. Left control, left click, left control, left click. And what we're getting is just a string of objects. Now, the really weird part about how this works is it's not actually going to place objects by default wherever I click these vertices. See it place one there. It just does whatever spacing it thinks it really wants to. There's one on that vertex because that's where it starts, but it's spacing them out. What is it? 60.9599999 meters apart. So we will change that here in a little bit. All right, once you get to straightaways, generally things get further apart. The new world update has changed the imagery to the point where I can't even hardly tell where there's actually lights. So yeah, see, now what I just did was I zoomed out to look across to see, hey, is there lights here? Because I'm just sort of seeing dirt without any real, like, conclusive lights on the inside of it. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing here, but I think I've got this right. God, I just can't see any lighting in these. The sim is just covering them up. All right, so done with that. And now we've got this string along the inside of this whole taxiway where lights are occasionally placed. There's one there. There's one there. But hey, I marked all these spots to say that there should be a light there, right? So with the light row selected, which it is right here. You can see it's in blue right over here. I'm going to go up here, and I'm not changing type because I don't want to do anything with that just yet, but I'm going to hit snap to vertices. So snap to vertices makes it so that it actually does place an object in each one of those spots that I just selected. There's light. There's a light. There's a light. There's a light. So all my vertices have lights now. And I can still click and drag them to move them. And it'll place them. Might take a second, but it does it eventually. All right, so what that ends up looking like. As we fly over. Hey, VK1Z. Yeah, this is a game. This is a Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we're in the scenery, using the SDK in the scenery editor. So, building this airport. There you go. You can see them there. Little blue lights sitting where they're supposed to go. This, I don't like how this happened here. There's just so much overgrowth here. Why is there so much vegetation there? Then we pull back a little bit. Go up here, weather. And go to nighttime. Twilight at least. And there you go. See a little string of blue taxiway lights. Things about taxiway lights that I like is that they're omnidirectional, which means you can see them from every angle. Now the problem is with the models, there is definitely a side where they disappear. You will get issues with lighting when the lighting spawns in. It's when the actual object spawns in and spawns out. There's a level of detail thing where beyond a certain point it doesn't render the actual object anymore, the actual object, but it'll still render the light. And when it switches, it kind of flickers. Sort of disappear. Like just did it there. Just did it there. So you get those issues. They disappear for a second. They come back and it's annoying. So I already did all this with the runway edge lights. I placed those all in the right spot. At least the ones that have standards. The ones that stand up. The ones that are actually embedded in the runway, I have to do those still. We'll go over that later. Yeah, there you go. That's how you can place the taxiway lights without using a taxi path to do it. It's kind of customizes them, and I like it. Now, if you notice, the default lights have, actually, I think there's two lights that they use. It doubles them up. So there's a purple one. I think you can see that. Yeah, there you go. There's a purple one inside of the blue one. So you're going to get a little bit of purple. As you get further away, all you can see is the blue. But the purple, as you get, shows up as you get closer. Why it does that, I don't know. We can change that so that these all have presets and then they don't do that anymore. But, so there's one string of lights, and that's taxiway lights. I'll make it even darker so that it's easier to see. There they are. Day, night lighting. back to midday here. So the thing that is kind of a bummer for me is that the actual objects, depending on what your settings are, when you're taxiing, you're not going to see them until they're like right next to you. They kind of pop in and pop out. It's again a level of detail thing. That's to save resources, but they don't stick out all that much. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. So there you go. That's a light row. That is how we would do the taxiway lights for the whole thing. And then you're going to see in the editor, you already see this line, yellow line down the runway. That's for the runway light string that I did, but now you get the string on all of your edges of taxiways, so it'll be pretty obvious when you've done it already, when you let it load it your editor, because you'll see yellow mixing in with the green edges for all your vertices, and those are your borders. So, oh, this is a lighted taxiway section. All the rest of this doesn't have lights because I don't see any yellow there yet. Alright, so we'll go do this, the inside of this little section here. So I'm still in my kilo. I'm going to do this first. So I'm inside the kilo folder. I've got my light row and my 2 aprons. So I'm going to click this little button. I'm going to create a new group based on that object, the light row object. I'm just going to say light row. Call it a light row. And open that. There it is. So I'm going to keep that selected. I'm going to do another light row. Adding. And this one's going to be a little bit easier. Left control, left click, left control, left click. Because I can actually see a bright spot in there. And the bright spot is generally where the taxiway light is. Ooh. I really can't see anything for this one. Just gonna kind of eyeball it. So the exact placement of these doesn't really matter that much, as long as it's in there somewhere, so that when the light you actually see the light in the sim, it doesn't look completely misplaced. I can't see any lights here. Ugh. There's a lot more vegetation built into this sim right now. Check something. All the vegetation's turned off. Ugh, grass is killing me. All right, well, What are you going to do? So in spots where I should be putting a light, I can't see anything. Because it's covered in grass. Which is not a problem that I've had before. This is the first time I've had this issue. So here I am just sort of guesstimating where these lights are. There's got to be one more here somewhere. So for this, I'm going to use the Google Maps imagery because that is way easier to use. Oh, that's the last one. Oh, there is one. But it's on the taxiway. Or it's on the border. Okay, so for that, I go runway aprons. I'm just going to hide this one. Yeah, there it is. There's the last one right there. How did that happen back here also? What does Google Maps say? Yeah, there's a light in here. It's like right in here somewhere. Probably that right there. Okay, so there, this one doesn't actually right there. It's like right there. That makes sense. And likewise, there's no light here. Light is there. That's why it didn't look right. See, this weird angle that it came in at just never really looked right to me. All right, so we'll put it right there. And this makes more sense being like there. That looks better. Saving. Let's check the placement of the rest of these. I'm sort of counting lights in the based off of the image that I'm looking at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think that's a light. Yeah, this one's not a light. Remove point. Oh, there's actually another one in here. Oh, it's so hard to see. This Google imagery is not good. All right. So that's not helping. All right. Let's see. It's going into Google Earth Pro. Cool thing about Google Earth Pro is you can use historical photos. And you can zoom in further. All right, sorry. Capo Itana, hello. Welcome, welcome. All right, I don't know if you saw what I just did, but I drew a surface on there that got rid of the grass, at least the 3D grass, and still some 2D grass on there, which I hate, but this is just Asobo's taking the stuff it sees underneath and messing with it. So now I can kind of see where those lights were. So that's the trick, I guess. So I drew a surface. I made it 100% opaque, which got rid of the 3D objects on it. Because if I do the draw surface thing, well then look at that, the grass comes back. So that's not the trick. Then obviously if I do that, then you can see too much of it. So I got rid of all of it, and so I could see through a little bit better. Really, really stupid that's what you have to do. What's the ground merging do? Doesn't change anything? I'm still convinced that it doesn't actually do anything anyway. Doesn't do much. Okay, so that's the trick that I had to do to see any taxiway lights underneath. And otherwise, I think I got them all. So yay for that, I guess. And there we go. Nighttime, it looks decent. As I said, they get wider apart on straightaways, bunch up more on the curves. And the reason it gets so bunchy here is because there's curves here, so it matches the curves on the other side, even if there isn't one on this side. Same deal over here. Like normally they'd be spaced further apart, but because it starts going into turns, they're supposed to try to mirror each other on the lights. So yeah, so for the most part, whenever it sees these little dirt circles, it doesn't draw grass on there, which is nice, but it seems to do it in some spots. What's up? How you doing today?
Better than I deserve. I had a few minutes before my first morning meeting, and I saw you were in your chat.
Better than you
This is
deserve, Mr. Dave Ramsey over here.
Dave Ramsey. Oh
Do
man.
you know who Dave Ramsey is?
Oh, I absolutely do.
Okay, that's a Dave Ramsey. See, when you said better than I deserve, that's how I knew. You must know who Dave
That's right.
Ramsey is.
That's right. That's code for I hate debt and I want to get rid of it.
Yes. Amen to that.
For sure. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Doing well. How are you? Better than
Doing
this.
pretty good.
Don't say it again. Don't say it again.
We've established this. We're qualifying this. Um, my beautiful wife made me breakfast this morning. Had it with some coffee,
Oh,
going over some things for work,
yeah.
and
Great way to start the day.
it's a beautiful way to start the day. I will be jumping into code things as a software developer, but I have been I don't know. I feel like I've been going like gangbusters on the airport that I've been working on in Canada for the past, I think, 3 weeks now.
Awesome.
I would like to say I'm shooting for a mid to near end of July release for that on flightsim.to. Then I might take like a week or two off from design and sit down and figure out what it is I want to do with the rest of the year. Because I know I have like several airports, but the pace at which I'm at, it's not going to be conducive to me releasing more than one airport this summer. If I am going to release another airport this summer, it's probably going to be another freeware airport. I would like to release at least one airport this year as payware,
Awesome.
but I'm only going to have one airport as payware this year in order to be able to provide extremely good support to make sure that individuals have the ability to install and to use that airport. It depends on what happens. It depends on how many custom assets I use for the airport and when it's released, if there are any world updates. Because I mean, it's going to be a whole new, can of worms in terms of me monitoring things like that. But I had a company name set up years and years ago that I stopped using because I got busy with real world work and the things that I do on a day to day. I would like to see whether or not that actually, follows through. In the meantime, I'm learning and I'm just chipping away at the marble sculpture piece by piece, laying fence and just making sure that it looks nice. I'm probably for my freeware release, I'm gonna stick with some or maybe even most of the default buildings. But like I said before, one of the easiest ways to dress up any scenery that you release or even any airport that you fly to and you're just not satisfied with it, slap night lights on the buildings.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
it's just such a, and this is going to sound cheesy, night and day difference, literally. Because when you can look at an airport and see it lit up, when it's night, when it's like dusk, it's just really cool.
Yeah. Having dark buildings is a bummer. It definitely
I
takes away
suppose,
from the wow factor of even nice looking default scenery.
right, right. I don't even mind that we live in a, a fictional world where streetlights are invisible and hover in the air and provide light on roads. I'm, I've, I've come to peace with that as long as you put them at the airports. But I can see how maybe some developers will be weirded out, or the more probable and likely answer is either light sources consume CPU, like lots of CPU, if you're not careful and you start placing them all over the place, or it was not easy for them to decide on a light fixture that would allow them to light up their regional and international airports with ease. The handmade sceneries, yes, they have them, but not the ones that are just algorithmically generated, which is a bummer, but at the same time, it opens the door to folks like you and me to take care of lighting those airports up.
Absolutely.
What do you have on plan for this week?
Well, I've been plugging away at this airport, and I think I told you, or you're aware that I lost all of my progress, so I'm starting from scratch. But it's actually plugging away pretty quick. For me, it's just I put way too much detail into these surfaces, and they take too long. But otherwise, I think I'm gonna try to get this airport to the point where I at least have all the taxiways and like ramps down, and then I can maybe bring the default buildings back in and kind of just go from there. But I don't know. See.
I followed a very similar process. I took the default buildings away and I got rid of the apron surfaces to notice where buildings were being placed and put down static aircraft. I'm going to get rid of probably about 50 to 75% of the statics to put in a lot of aircraft start positions.
Yeah.
And then that will keep some of the statics there for visual appeal. But I'm on a similar path.
Now I think I'm using light rows right now, so I'm just throwing down a bunch of taxiway lights, which I like. I don't like to use hardly any of the default light assets that are in the properties for like runways and taxiways. I haven't actually done any line painting yet. I don't know if we talked about this before, but I just can't stand the texture that the sim has by
Ah,
by default.
okay, okay.
So so I have to figure out because it doesn't have the little like black border. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. If you're using a light apron texture, your taxi texture, your yellow line is going to have a hard time sticking out. I
Right.
tried a little cheap, but it didn't work for me. All right, friend. It is now 10 o'clock. My meeting is about to start, so I'm going to duck out. But this has been a privilege talking to you. Oh, my
Oh,
word.
same to you. Let's talk again soon, and I look forward to seeing your progress with fencing.
Thank you, sir. God bless you and have a great day.
Same to you, sir. We'll see you.
See ya.
All right. Interacting with other people who are doing the same thing is pretty awesome, and that's part of the reason I do this is to attract, hopefully, get other people to want to try this out on their own, and also share ideas and techniques and stuff, what works, what doesn't work for you, so that we can all kind of get in here and make better products. And it doesn't have to all be just like secretive, like, oh, I'm a professional scenery developer and I don't want to share all my secret type of stuff. I'm not into that, you know. We got to help each other out around here. So it's always good to have guys like Discorder in there who are providing some insight. All right. Well, that was exciting. I wanted to make sure that I had his voice in there so you guys could hear it. All right. Well, we're up to 73 views of the video already. I'm sure this stuff puts most people to sleep almost immediately. But for me, this is exciting stuff. And like I say in the video title, building an airport is easy. It's not that hard, and it just takes a little time and effort. And I think it's worth it. And as we just sort of touched on briefly there, it's a labor of love, and you're putting time in to try to make a better product, and you're trying to say, okay, this is what the default guys did, this is what the Asobo AI did with this airport. I can make it look much better. And unfortunately, the sim is not at a state where you can actually edit the Asobo scenery. You have to make, if you want to edit an airport, you've got to make the whole thing. So there's a lot of learning curve involved there, but it's also, I think, more rewarding as a result, because you get to get in there and really understand all the assets and how everything works inside of the scenery files. You're not touching and editing like the actual files themselves, but what you're doing is learning how to place things, how to manipulate them, learning what the building blocks are of sceneries. What are the important objects? What are the pieces of the puzzle? That didn't help at all there, did it? Okay, let's say there's one there. So I have a hunch here that what I'm seeing is just a discrepancy with the I think they changed the photo textures with the world update in the US. So I think the photos underneath this airport are different, but I'm not sure they've really done the baking in of the sorry, the vegetation underneath that goes on top. That's, sorry, not underneath, on top. Like there's a little vegetation layer. I call it a schmutz layer because there's just, that's not that I'm Jewish or anything, but that is, what is it, Hebrew or Yiddish for dirt. And I think it just puts a layer of grime above everything, especially dirt and grass and stuff. And it's not meshing too well with the photos underneath. All right, there's that line, and we'll do snap to vertices to make sure that every vertice has a light. I think that's about it, right? I don't know. I've got questions on these here, but I don't know. Can only do so much, right? I gotta get some water. My water glass empty. Cool. Super exciting to get other scenery builders in here. They're kind of along the same path. You can hear us talking about it. Oh, look at that. Look at that. There's a light that is probably not actually there. Let's look on the Googly Maps image. Let's try to figure this out. There's something there, but I don't think it's a light. So I'm going to take this one, select that, right click, remove point, and it is gone. So that's the kind of brief little editing kind of eye that you have to have. You go in and wait a minute, there's one on this side, but not on this side. I know that that's not right. And I have the same questions here. Let's move the map here a little bit. All right, I think that's accurate actually. So after this little notch here where the cement meets the asphalt, there's 1, 2, 3 of them. Yeah, that looks accurate. A longer span to just past the line there is good. Yeah, that's all nice. Actually, don't know if this one is supposed to be placed there. Oh yeah, it is. And it is closer to this one than that gap there. Why? I don't know. Try to move it this way a little bit just to make it look not so silly. Oh no, it's got to go right there. Okay. All right, so I wanted to get back to the threshold lighting. You get the idea of how all this works. I'll go and finish the rest of that off stream. So I want to get to the threshold lighting. So what I've done down here on this end of the world, remove that objects, get rid of, close those up, is I've put a little cement layer over here on top of the blast pad. Notice the painted lines go over all of your aprons, which is annoying in some respects. So this here is where these lights will stand. I've already placed a couple of lights and I ended up not really doing them correctly. So what we're gonna do is I want to close some of this off. Taxiway Kilo. Close that. Alright, this is where we are. Unlock the runway object. Taxiways. Which apron? Okay, there's that one. So we're gonna hide that one. And hide that one. Okay, so you can see through here that there is definitely some sort of a concrete pad here. Or some asphalt. I don't know what it is. I don't really care. But there's definitely a pad that all these lights sit on. And so here at the top, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lights on both sides. And those are the red runway end line lights that you'd see, say, if I was rolling to the end of this runway, I would see 4 red lights on either side of the runway. On the other side of it here, we got all of these lights here, which are green, so that when you're approaching the runway, you can see them, and you see just a big bar of green. That shows you where the threshold is for the runway that you're landing on. But it only points away from the runway, just like the red ones only point in towards the runway, so that you don't see them from the other end. So that is the thing we're kind of trying to mimic here. So runway threshold lighting. So there's a whole bunch of really good resources on the internet that shows you what all this stuff looks like. Okay, so now we got MSFS SDK, because there's a couple of properties that I got to figure out here. Unidirectional light. presets. That's where we go. Okay. I'm reading stuff on the SDK here. devsupport.flightsimulator.com is very interesting. It's people actually talking with the scenery devs about how best to use these assets. Now, let me bring this up here so you can see what I'm looking at. There we go. Hopefully you can read that. If you can't read that, let me know. So sorry for the delay. I needed some input from our scenery editor dev before I could answer. Obviously, the doc saying directions are in degrees is wrong. These are positions in meters. It will be fixed. For now, the orientation of your light preset is done by orienting the light row you use it on. I guess the has heading will play that role when it's functional. I don't witness, this is from August of 2021, by the way. I don't witness the issue you're describing with period and duration adjustments, for example. Okay, so this is not quite what we're looking for. Using the SDK. Into the SDK we go. So for this, we got index, lighting presets is what we're looking for. Lights, basic setup lights. Oh, that's not the lights we're talking about. Light row. There we go. Light presets. Nice. This is a work in progress. Please use with caution. Well, that's enlightening. I don't know what language that is, but thanks for watching. All right, 82 views we're up to now. So we're reading about light presets. Where do we find that in the sim? Turn this off real quick. So when you click on the actual airport thing here and the properties, you're going to get all of these blah 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 decants, but the bottom was light presets. Why it's in there, I don't know. I don't understand that at all. Okay, so this is threshold. We're going to start with threshold red. I want to do. So I'll call this, go down to base, and I want taxi light red. When I select this light row here, it is now, I want threshold red. So it should pop up a light, and it should be all red now. It is good. So now I just want to see which way does it emit. answer is it doesn't. There's a setting that it's been a bit since I did this the last time, so there's a setting that gets it to show in a particular direction. And right now it's not doing it. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit more here. Just doing a little searching here on the internet. Some light presets. Oh, a written tutorial. Interesting. All right. Like to recommend adding options and types of lights in the light row function. Currently, we only have blue edge taxi lights. Having an option to change the color and type, 3D model or flat pad on pavement would be wonderful. The current system does its best to either put a 3D standing model or a flat pavement light base. This is the problem I had from the very beginning here. This is someone who hasn't dug too deep into it. Pavement light model or flat pavement light based on the surface it's being placed on, but it's often not accurate, and furthermore, we sometimes need to override what it wants to do. Although there are many workarounds to achieve the desired effect, it's often not efficient in terms of production productivity. Thank you. Be well. Okay. This option is already there, but not obvious. Go to the airport object properties, which is what I did when I went over here and sorry, you can't see that. I came over here and selected this. This is the airport object. These are all the properties. That's what it's talking about. So, and look at the light preset section. Here you can define light presets that you can then select in the light row properties. You can set up type, color, position, and mesh. Thanks for the tip. I don't see an option to select the type of 3D mount the light is on, though. That's the mesh part. In other words, an option to say it's on a 3D stand, stick pole, like on taxiway edges on runway and runway edges, or a flat pad like on runway taxiway center lines, for example. An area. So he's talking about the same problem that I had originally, which sent me down this rabbit hole. Click the select mesh button shown in the screenshot to select the 3D model that is placed under each light. Accurate. Here's an example. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Drzwecki Design. They make good stuff. Came in and said, I second that. There are different color lights at airports, like orange or red, on flat pads, centerline style. The option Labra is writing about would indeed be very useful. You do this already with custom light types. You just have to build them, that's all. So that didn't really get us anywhere, but they're absolutely right. Okay. So I want to make sure, actually, that we do this. There we go. I want face cam to be on top. Right. Lights. There we go. When will there be a proper tool in the SDK to exclude the AI taxiway lights and implement custom taxiway centerline and edge lights with proper positioning and spacing? Because still third-party airports are released with the default taxiway lights, which are quite random and neither properly positioned, nor is the spacing between them proper. Let's see the reply to this. Oh, sorry. There is a reply to this. Oh, here we go. My question about development of Microsoft Ground. At the current stage of the SDK, all ground textures have to be covered by a default Microsoft Flight Sim detail texture like asphalt, concrete, paint, etc. But they cause blurriness on the underlying texture. The question: please modify scenery to keep original high resolution or of ground textures and fix blurry effect due to the covering by the layer of default asphalt texture type texture. In other words, would be perfect to use the ground textures with high resolution without compression and with invisible default. You can already do that. You can already do this on the edge for the edge lights by using the light rows. The center line is another story. What we need to have is the ability to specify the light color when using light rows. Then we will be able to customize the center line. You can specify the light color when using light rows. Oh, you want to do it in the light rows property. That would be easier. I spoke too soon. Sorry, it appears that you can already make different colored light rows by adding light presets that you can select when making a light row. I tried this and was able to create a light row with red lights. You can learn how to do this by reading up in the SDK documentation. Start with a search. They search on light row, something new to play with, but beware, they said it's a work in progress. It certainly is a work in progress. Snow accumulation. Some really interesting things in these dev forums here. Look at this. Hmm. If you're trying to adjust the position, etc., of existing taxiway lights, but using light rows with the light presets will allow you to evenly place and set the distance between the lights. You can even change the color. There are other options also. Doing the above will allow you to easily construct taxiway edge light or taxiway centerline lights once you have your presets set. No presets required for the edge lights. Could they make it simpler? Sure. Maybe we'll see that down the road. Yeah, for sure. Needs to be simpler. Currently construct beacon lights that can be set at a distance by using the light rows with light presets. The major drawback to doing this is that currently you can only use the light presets within the bounds of an airport. I tried it and it works. I have requested and have a request in to make it so the light rows can be placed anywhere and not just within the airport radius. Hopefully this is something they'll consider. Read up on light rows and light presets. Lots of parameters that can be set. Amen to that. All right. Well, let's just read up, shall we? Okay, so light presets. Light presets are a work in progress feature that aim to make it easier and quicker to add lighting to your airport. The basic principle is that you can create one or more light presets for an airport and then apply these presets to any of the possible lighting object elements that you add, permitting you to create a sequence strobe lights or pulsing directional lights, etc. How that works, I don't know. That's a project right there. Sephiroth, good to see you, man. Sorry, I've been buried reading this stuff here, so we're learning about the SDK here a little bit, but good to see you nonetheless. Always good to have you here. We're in learning mode right now. Also note that this feature can only be applied to light row object elements. When you expand this option, you'll be presented with a single button, Add Light. We've got going over here. Let me shrink this down a little bit so you can see this better. There we go. Okay, so when you add this option, add preset, add light. Okay. Click this will add a new light preset and expand options for the light that you are adding. Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to do these threshold lights. I did it on my previous the now deleted, unfortunately, God rest its soul. Oh, whoa. Okay, so it does show a light, it just points straight up. That's right. So there's gotta be a way to I have to one of these parameters here turns it so that it's straight down. David Gerson back. Welcome back, my man. So Digidiscorder was in here, and he's also doing a lot of this stuff that I'm doing, the same kind of stuff that I'm doing. So he and I were talking for a little bit about how our projects are going, but I have to figure out how to place this light. First, it's got to go lower, so that's actually in the light object, and that's got to point the right direction. That's what we got to do. I just got to figure out how to do that. Okay, select mesh button. Once you have set up the basic preset values, you can go ahead and add lights to the preset. This is done by clicking the add light button, which we did, and right now we are working on this one right here, light 0, which is the red light. Alright, so this is done by clicking the add light button, which will further expand the properties with options for the light. Note you can add further lights to the preset, and they will each have their own options, and you can remove lights from the preset by clicking the X button. So, for instance, clicking right there. Type this, and the type of type this type of light. So we're starting at the top. Type this type of light can be defined. Light that is being defined can be one of the following: omnidirectional light will be visible from any direction. Generally, that's helpful. Unidirectional light will be visible from the half space defined by the position and the direction. Position and direction are not presets that we have here, as you can see. So this is a problem. Yeah. I'm reading documentation because there's no other way for me to figure this stinking thing out. It's the fastest way, I suppose. So yeah, light will be visible from the half space defined by the position and the direction. Essentially, a 3D cone of light will fall off from all front angles, but not visible from the back. So, in my experience, this generally works in about a 90-degree cone, but not a 180-degree cone. So it's really kind of limits the amount of light that you can see. Angled directional, this is similar to the unidirectional light. Only the second direction value is used to define the normal for a cutoff plane where the light is not visible if viewed from below that plane. Generally only useful for VASI lights. That makes sense. So we're talking about the pitch of the light. It references that with up and down. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Double angle directional. This uses two directional normals to define two cutoff planes. Light will, so this is again just pitch of the light. We don't care about the Fresnel. I don't think works too much. Okay. Fade, radius, blah, 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 blah. Radius, the radius of the light in meters. This is essentially the distance of the glow around the light. Okay. Intensity, the intensity of the light when fully on. Higher values will mean a more intense light, which will be visible at a greater distance. So the intensity for taxiway lights themselves should be set pretty low. It doesn't tell us what the values are, what the range is. But anyway, taxiway lights, specifically at night, you don't want to see from very far away. We're not working with the taxiway light here. You can see it got actually brighter when I did that. That's not very bright at all. 15 is much brighter. There we go. We want this to be visible from pretty far away. We'll stick with 10 for now. And we'll see how that looks as we go on. Anyway, okay, well, we're in the presets. Back to the presets, okay. Okay. Duration of light on. 0, I think this is always on. period, the combined blah, 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 phase, color, relative position. There, this is where we got to get into the good stuff here. The relative position. That's these three values right here. And direction. The input fields are here to permit you to offset the light from the position it was placed in the world, along with the Y, Z, and X coordinates. Okay, where the x-axis will follow the light row that the preset is applied to. The values are in meters. Direction. The direction of the light set using y, z, x axis values in meters, and the values used here will be added to the local frame of reference for the components that use the preset. This parameter is used by all lights except the omnidirectional type. Note that for double angle directional and Fresnel lights, this value is for defining a normal from which a cutoff plane will be created for the light. I would love to have some sort of idea as to how this works. Okay, so I just changed one direction and it went from which direction does this light point? I don't know. Can vaguely tell that there's a light in there, I guess, but it doesn't. It's not at all apparent as to which way it's facing. Okay. Let's try this one. 1. Oh wait, that's the offset. That's not helpful. Okay, 1. No effect. 1. Oh, wait. I saw something there for a second. How about -1 for this? What would that yield us? Let's turn this to 0. This is supposed to be meters, right? So I could be really messing something up here. And when I had this as 1, it at least shined straight up, right? Didn't it? Did it not? Okay, I think the problem is it's buried in the ground. Alright, so now that places the light at 1 meter. Oh, okay, there we go. Now it's only facing that way. Okay, good. So this, I gave this light row a heading already. Let's mess with that a little bit. So we want 136. If I change it to 136, which direction does it point in? Ah, now it's going the right direction. Okay. Alright, so there's 2 lights there. So when I do this, you can see lights. There we go. So we have 2 lights. We need 6 more. All right. We don't need to be nighttime for this necessarily anymore. We can kind of do this in twilight or in afternoon lighting, so I can still see the orb. All right. So in the preset, got to go back into the preset again to do all this. In the preset, we want to go to like a 0.7 meters. There we go. Now we're closer to being 0.68, 0.68. I want to get that light as close to touching the actual little thing there as I can. 0.66 without cutting any of it off. It's slightly cut off, so 0.67. Let's do 0.668. I think it's the number I usually use. Good. All right, 0.668 it is. Oh, no, 0.67 there. 0.67. That's what we use. Good. Okay, so it's actually down in the light now. 45 degrees. Let's just do 3 degrees here. How about that? That should work. Now this should turn it off. Yep, good. Now when I go to the actual light row that we're talking about, I'm going to give it a new heading of 046. Which should mean it's shining on the other side, right? Something has broken again. Alright, my preset changed, made it point straight up again. I didn't like that. Let's do 90. Pointing down again. Okay, there we go. So we want 0. Makes it point straight up. Okay, 90. Alright, to the light row. Let's turn this 90 degrees. Boom. Okay. Very interesting. So if I do this and go back to 4.6, and in here I spin it on the Z axis 90 degrees. There we go. That was what I was looking for. Ooh. No, I don't like that. 180. Okay. Well. $136 it is. I don't like is just that I think the dispersal of the cone is just not enough. I should be able to see this from a lot of places on the airport. Guess why are these buildings back, by the way? Who decided that was a good idea? Alright, so I can see those threshold lights from here. That's a good thing. Okay. 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 Alright, let's turn back to daytime. Back in our top-down camera. I do notice, however, that once I put the buildings back in, all of a sudden the sim's moving smoother. Alright. Back into editor. The light row. Whoa, no, no, no. Let's move the whole line. Didn't want to do that. Right. Add some points. Add a point there. Let's make that one go away. There we go. Added points. Yay! Right. So now we have 4 lights on either side. Yay, we did it. And again, when you get close enough to actually spawn in the actual objects, things get wonky. That's exactly the effect we want right there. So now we're going to do the same with green lights. So that was the effect we wanted. We wanted 4 lights on the corners placed exactly where they're supposed to be on light standards. So they're raised. Also, looking good. Let's get a little bit higher altitude so we can run away a little bit faster here. Testing the durability of how far away we can see these things. Alright, so not super intense from this distance. Let's go in and change the intensity to 15. They're more noticeable. I like that. Okay. For me, for now, that's fine. So we had to play with the heading a little bit to get it to face the right way. That's not that big of a deal. That's local to the actual row that you're using, which I like, because then I can say, well, all of these lights are going to face this way. I don't have to change it in the presets every time. Oh. Ugh. Zephyrus, you know how bad I am about that. Anyway. So, this is the product. This is what we were going for. We wanted four of these lights, all on light standards. And that's what we got. Okay, so I'm going to go back and unhide these things of which we've hidden. That back, put that back. Aprons back. There we go. 4 lights. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. On a pad. Emitting down the thing. Good. Then on this side, you see nothing, because we shouldn't see anything on that. That's using the unidirectional lights. Now, we're going to do something similar. Well, why could I see that one? That wasn't supposed to happen. I think that was a bug there. A glitchy. Maybe that was just a reflection, if such things exist. Setting sun. Okay, so now we're going to do the row of green lights across there. So we're going to use sort of something similar here. I have to do for this I have to add a preset. Add preset. So we got a new preset here. This preset is going to be threshold green. Incremental phase doesn't matter. Select mesh. So I'm going to do a search in the. Go down to Asobo FS base. And we're going to go taxi underscore light underscore. And we're looking for green for that. That's the mesh we'll use. So it'll just be a green lights. We'll see now. We're going to add a light to it. Unidirectional. And nature. I'm going to turn to that 15. Period phase we don't care about. I'm going to do 0.67 for the height. 90 for that. 3s for that. And now we got to find a green that we like. Start with that for now. Okay, so in the editor, I apologize for this, but once again I have to go through and remove some surfaces here so we can see through better. I need to change the lighting so I can actually see the ground. How do airports choose the runway numbers? That's a very good question. Pretty easy question to answer. So they're based off of the magnetic heading of the runway. So for this one, and it's in tens. The number is in tens. So for this runway, it's 5. Now what that means is it's 5 tens. So this should be rounded. The heading of this runway, we cut off the front 0 also. So it's actually runway 05. You add a 0 to the end of that. It should be pointed around 50 degrees. Okay. So 5 means 50. And I think the magnetic heading is actually 54 degrees. So if it were rounded, if it went up just a little bit more, it would actually be 55 degrees, which would knock it up to runway 6. So eventually, when the magnetic variation shifts enough, which is always moving, by the way, the magnetic north is always moving. It's not, gradually over time changes. When it gets close enough to 6, or to 55 degrees, it rounds up to 60, and then it'll be a 6 right. But anyway, so that's how that works. Basically round. So if it said 25, or like the other end of this runway is 180 degrees, so it's 23 left is the number of this runway. So that points at 230 degrees. So that's how you number runways. And you will see airports, like I sort of alluding to, where the numbers do change over time. All right, so in the lights, we're going to go to the objects. Another light row. We're going to add a light row starting here. I'm going to make it go all the way over to here. Isn't it interesting that the light row doesn't go through all the lights? Okay. I'm just going to start with that, and I'm going to move this one to there. That looks a little better anyway. Okay. We will use, let's see, get rid of the objects. We're done with that. Snap to vertices, type. We're going to go down and select the threshold green. So these should all be of threshold green type, which it is. And now you see our beautiful green lights. Good. Okay, so I'm going to give them a heading of 316. The heading is important. Just trust me on that. Okay, adding a point. Oh, that's not right. Let's get rid of that. Alright, that should be pretty good. Shall we see what we get from that? There we go. Now they're lighting up. Zooming in, flying in on approach. Starting to look more like a real airport, right, guys? Look at that, we got taxiway lighting in the distance there. Now, I wanted to manipulate the intensity of those taxiway lights so that they're not... Oh, I can't do that, can I? I shouldn't really be able to see them from this far away. So I need to make a taxiway property light for that. Seeing the threshold is exactly what we want. So let's go back into here. Add a new preset. Select mesh, taxi, oops, search taxi underscore light underscore blue or whatever. I think it's taxi light 2 is what we want. It's weird that you have to reference it like that. Add lights. Blue is already selected. Omnidirectional 0.67. Okay, now these light rows. Let's save that for now. Close the runway one. Taxiways, there we go. Kilo, light row, front row. These are all type. Blobbity blobbity. I didn't name it. There we go. So as I said, light row, select. These are all type taxiway blue. And now let them be blue. So from this distance, I probably shouldn't be able to see any of them. So this is where you go into the light settings and turn the intensity down. Let's go down to 5. Still see them. Turn the intensity down. Barely see them now. Lowest intensity. They're starting to disappear now. let's just for kicks go into Google or DuckDuckGo, say runway threshold light spacing. All right. All right, so it's supposed to be 10 feet. $3 meters. That ain't right. I'm looking at airport standards documentation here. Okay. It talks about the spacing of the threshold lights. This is not what we're doing, though. So it's 10 feet. The distance there. 10 feet. 3 meters. Okay. 3 meters center to center. What if I'm doing the bar all the way across it? That is the real question. Lights appear green. So difference between runway and taxiway lights, tips and takeaways. This is not what I need. Okay. So those are 10 feet apart.
Well, I can't do anything right now. I'm in the middle of wiping
to the other side we go. All right, I want to make a little bit of a pad here. Very different placement. Camera top down. Zooming out. Zoom in. Good enough. Okay. Hide that one. This one's a little different. Okay, so let's go to don't need to worry about painted lines here. Lights. All right, back to objects, light row. Lights are selected, so add. One there. One there. Alright, that light row is of type threshold green. Has a heading. Say 36. Okay. Huh. It's almost right, wasn't it? Alright, let's try this. 1.6. 1.58. Nope. 1.59. Nope. 1.6. Huh. don't think that's going to work. All right, so snap. I'm going to use my Google Maps source. Yeah, there was a diaper change taking place right behind me there for a second, and daughter likes to come in and make her presence known when these things happen. Let's see, so I'm gonna. It's like exactly 1.5 meters in between each of these lights. Alright, so if I turn that off and I go 1.5 meters spacing between lights. Then in theory it should be spacing these out correctly, but it's not. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 outside of there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's right. Those line up. These should line up. Those don't line up. Which means the measurement is wrong. Sorry. I misspoke. Oh, okay, this is double spacing. Every 2 lights. Alright, so this is 2 different ways to kind of skin the cat here. I think I've got it. So now let's go to our regular dev cam. Let's go flying over here. Yeah, she did just learn how to be a 3-year-old. There we go. Look at all those lights. There's a ton of lights on this side. I think they're well placed. And now, let's see, we can turn these aprons on. I think. No, we can't turn that one on. Can't turn that one on. There we go. Alright, let's dim the lights, shall we? See if I have this pointing in the right direction. I think I do. Look at that. Perfectly spaced. Yeah, sometimes you're just going to hear that 3-year-old in the background. There's not much I can do. Kids are loud. What are you going to do, you know? Alright, have you noticed... Oh. The intensity for all these lights did not change the way I wanted it to. But... Okay, so the taxiway lights... Intensity's changed for just one of them. They didn't all get... Oh, it didn't globally set them. Interesting. That's a pain in the butt. Okay. It's like, I just noticed that these taxiway lights are awfully dim. So now, as I said, when you leave the airport a little bit, you shouldn't really be able to see the taxiway lights all that well. And now you can't. So, sorry, I'm fixing like 2 different things at once here. It's kind of probably confusing for you guys. Let's go to 2 on that setting. If we go to 5. Maybe that's too much. 3. Let's go back to 1. Wow, those are dim. Okay. I like 2 then. Let's try 2. Point where you can't really see the taxiway lights anymore. That's where we want to get. See them just fine from the ground. Okay, I like that. Nice. Ah, good. Yeah. So your ears are probably specially tuned to that sound then, I would think. That's so many more lights than it was on the other side. I like how they're all specifically placed though. That is very nice. Okay, let's go to the other side here. Let's do the red ones. And then I'm probably calling it a day. I don't think lawn mowing's getting done today. Alright, so the spacing I did, I want to try to copy it. You're a little young to be a parent yet, sir. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. Okay, so good. All right. Another light row. So I can set it right from the beginning before I even actually place anything. I can set the type for red. For this, I don't think that's right. So it's the 316. There we go. Okay, I'm going to place one. There. There. Alright, for this light row, the spacing was 1.51. 521, sorry. So now we need to double that. So it'd be 3.42. .042. Thank you for the math help, guys. There we go. No, buddy. Being a parent's awesome. It's hard work, but it's awesome. Can't be a kid forever. Alright, so there we go. 4 well-placed lights. I'm actually going to copy this. Sorry, what I'm going to do is duplicate this, I should say. So there's a duplicate button there. You can hit duplicate. Now we got a copy. So I can just pick it up and drag it on over. Move it on over. Lock it on over. There we go. Drop it. Okay. Boom. Look at that. That's what we wanted the whole time. You flip to the other side and you got green. Red. And that is how you do threshold lighting, to make it so it's placed in the right spots, on the right kind of little poles, little stands, not embedded in the ground, spaced well, pointing in the right direction, things of this nature. I like it. Like that. You can see all the little stems. So when you taxi onto the runway, you'd be like, oh, look at all those lights. Hey, there's a bunch of lights right there. Eh. Our aprons back on. There's the 2, 3 left that we were talking about earlier. Lights spawn in. Ew, I see what I didn't do. This new apron that I made here. And the properties are going to go +1 on priority, so that goes above there. Go. I think in reality these would only go on when the high intensity lights went on. But in the sim, for some reason, the lights are on all the time. Stupid. What you gonna do? Now, this is all going to change because eventually I'm going to have Taxiway that's coming up to here. In order to do that, I'm going to have to find a way to replace the ground texture, at least for this side of it. So I can use a Google texture in here to finish this out, because for some reason the Bing stuff it's just so old that it doesn't show the Taxiway being done, which has been done for well over probably 6, 7, 8 years. And also hopefully get a newer texture in here, because there's a big old hangar here now, and these two ramps completely connect. So I can put that in there and get that done correctly. So I'm thinking some sort of texture for this half of the airport, this side of the airport, will be needed. And there's also new buildings down here too. Wow. They're loud. Yeah, they're loud, but they're great in so many ways, man. Still not showing these textures. Why are those not showing up? Oh, the draw surface part I turned off. There we go. Far fewer lights on this side. I think it has to do with the type of approach light system too. So the other side has an ALSEF2 system. This side just has a Mauser system. So there's less lights. Now if we come over to this runway, please don't mind the warpiness of the ground. The DEM data is very old. See, this one has ALSEF2 also, so there's tons of lights here. Those might be, no, that's the same as the 2-3 left side. But we come to this side doesn't have an ALSEF2 light, approach light system. This side has a Mauser system. Let's see, test the theory here. Well, spaced closer together also. Oh well. I think there are far more lights on the other side than there are on this side. I think that's safe to say. All right. Making fine progress, everyone. Making fine progress. This side of the world is looking exceptional. Yeah, we try our hardest to keep the electronic devices away from them. So far, we've been lucky. Our oldest is only 5, so he's not really of having his own iPad or iPhone age, obviously. So we're really gonna try to hold back on that as long as we possibly can. See what it looks like with buildings, vegetation. Really kind of looking like an airport, isn't it? And the most important thing, always click save every so often. So you can see all the outlined assets here are what we've been working on. That starts from down here, goes up the runway, all these ramps here, and then comes back. So we've done some lighting, did some threshold lighting, did taxi. What did I do in this episode here? Finished the taxiway, but went on and did some taxiway edge lighting, and we did the how to replace the threshold lights 2 different ways where I individually placed each of them, and also just used the in-sim spacing to get them to be kind of even on this side. Maybe I'll go back and do that on the other side at some point. This being raised is driving me nuts. Boom, there we go. Okay. So we got a lot done. Shoot, when I was young, iPads didn't exist. I like this airport. Doing good things, doing great things today. All right, so we messed with some lightings. We talked about lighting presets, which are in the airport object. This one right here. Get all these the lighting presets all down at the bottom. You can just minimize that there. I will probably have a ton of these by the time we're done. As I've got just one preset so far, this one right here for runway lights. But as we get further down the runway, I have to start changing the colors of them to yellow. And so some will be yellow on one side, some will be white on the other side. So I've got to figure out how to make it so that there's 2 different light types. And when we get to centerline lights, if I decide to go with the centerline stuff, that's going to get interesting, because then you got red lights and you got white lights, and it gets really complex. But it's just a couple more light types. Whew. Taxiway centerline lights are green. Then there's the yellow ones. Yeah, because they have to have the yellow embedded lights for once you're on the runway. So yeah, it's the taxiway centerline lights. This airport doesn't have taxiway centerline lights pretty much on the entire main part of the airport that you see here. It has it for the newer taxiways, which is this one, Taxiway Echo, and then everything on this side has taxiway centerline lights up until like right here-ish or something, I think. And it stops somewhere around here. So when you cross a hold short line, taxiway centerline lights on taxiways are green, but once you cross the center line, they alternate between green and yellow. That's how you know, hey, you're on the runway. And then there's the wigwag type of pulsing lights that would be here on the hold short line, on all of these hold short lines with the wigwag boxes. Those sorts of lighting, that sort of lighting does not exist on this side of the airport. Like you'll see a hold short line, but you won't see wigwags. That's what these are for, just in case they want to put them in at some point. Sort of pre-wired. I mean, you don't see that everywhere, so who knows? Maybe they got it set up to do it back here. Hopefully I'm not the only one that sees that. This is Kilo 3. I've got a taxiway light on this side, but not on this side. Let's inspect. Let's see what the Googly says about this. Yep, this is not a light. There you go. That's how we catch these things. You look at it and say, that doesn't seem right. Save. All right. I think we've reached a good stopping point. I've got about an hour till I have to leave for work, so I got time to eat lunch and get ready, prep. Thank you so much, everybody, for the, let's see, when he's old enough to buy her an iPhone 1 uploader reaction. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't even know where I'd buy one of those. All right, David, good to see you, man. Everybody have a good day. Thanks for tuning in. We got some good work done again. This is some of the more technical work that doesn't necessarily yield huge results in terms of stuff that is going on the airport, like big old ramps do, or things like that. But we got a bunch of lighting. That takes a while. So hopefully everybody learned something. Because if you didn't, I didn't do my job. But I had a good time. Thank you for the good chatter, the banter in the chat room. Got a chance to talk with Digit Discorder a little bit, which is fun. So hopefully we'll be back again soon. I have morning shifts tomorrow and the next day, so I will probably not be streaming in the morning, maybe in the afternoon if I do. Thank you so much for joining us, and like and subscribe if you have not already. They tell me I'm supposed to say that every time, and I often forget to do it. So if you haven't not already, show us a like and a subscribe file. 7 likes now. Look at that. Just boom. All of a sudden, everybody's liked the thing. So thank you so much, guys. 131 views thus far. I appreciate each and every one of them, even if you weren't able to stay that long. Average view duration is only 4 minutes and 22 seconds. That's how boring I am. So I apologize for that. But thanks for tuning in and checking it out. You can build an airport too, and hopefully we'll learn all the finer parts of this together and learn from each other. So have a great rest of the day. Until the next time, we'll see you. Be good.